A broad outline of Vedanta, 26th point today. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Dr. Krishnamurti Shastri, Dambe, Punachan, Karnataka. If so, it has been stated both in the Shrutis or Upanishads and the Smritis, that is Gita and such other works, by rishis or sages, based on the scriptural texts, that Jiva or the soul is a part of Paramatman, the Supreme Self. What will be the fate of such statements? Such a question may be raised. By the statement, Jiva is a part of Paramatman, it is meant that just as the reflection of the sun in a bucket of water is said to be a part of the sun, just as the sparks emanating from red hot coal are said to be parts of that fire in the coal, and just as the space within a pot is a part of the open space, in the same sense, Jiva is a part of Paramatman. That is, Jiva is of the essential nature of pure consciousness of Paramatman. Just as in the case, though the reflections are many in number, the central source for the reflection is one and one only. Similarly, in the case, apparently, though the jivas are many, their true central source or Atman of the essential nature of pure being consciousness is one and one only. Jivas and Brahman, the ultimate reality, are pure consciousness, Chaitanya alone. Although there are empirical transactions of many spaces like the pot space, the house space, etc., in reality, space is one and one only. Similarly, although there is an empirical dealing of the type jivas are many, in reality, their essential nature of being, viz. Brahman, is one and one only. To denote in this manner alone is the purport of the sentences mentioning parts. This is according to the Shankara Bhashya portions of Brahma Sutra and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Mandukya Karika Bhashya portions, according to these things, these texts. Next, 27th point. If for the statements of the type Jiva is a part of Paramatman, their literary meaning is taken or assumed, what is wrong? To this question, the answer is, then in that case, to the word part, any one of the meanings like a limb or organ of a body, mutation or change, power and a state will have to be given or assumed. If it is assumed that in Paramatman, the Supreme Self, that is the ultimate reality, there are many parts and that each part is a jiva, then it will have to be stated that just as when these limbs or organs of the body are integrated or conglomerated only, the whole or the integrated body will exist, and as soon as these limbs or organs get disintegrated, it will be destroyed. Similarly, Paramatman will get destroyed. This is not an acceptable statement. Therefore, Jiva is not a limb or organ of the Paramatman. In the same manner, if Jiva is said to be a mutation or change of Paramatman, just as clay has changed and has become an earthen pot, it will amount to saying that Paramatman has changed or transformed himself into Jiva. Even then, it is tantamount to accepting destruction to Paramatman. Therefore, Jiva is not a mutation or transformation of Atman or the Self too, because it is not proper or reasonable to say that the omnipotent Ishvara or Lord is subject to bondage. It cannot be accepted that Jiva is a power of Ishvara, the Lord, because the statement that in the beginning, Paramatman, having been very pure and clean, devoid of misery, later on got entangled in samsara, transmigratory nature of getting repeated births and deaths, samsara, which is impure and full of misery. So, this statement is not acceptable. Paramatma becoming a samsari. It does not suit to say that Jiva is a state of Paramatman. Therefore, for the statement Jiva is a part of Paramatman, the literary meaning cannot be taken at all. This is the 27th point. Next, 28th point. This should be performed or done. This should not be done. In this manner, karmas or religious actions or duties are stipulated in the scriptural texts with a view to cleansing the mind, antakarana, or the inner instruments of the jiva, in order to obtain the grace of Ishvara, the Lord. Upasanas or meditations have been stipulated to help attain liberation or emancipation or moksha. Jnana or self knowledge has been propounded. If Jiva is himself Brahman, all these disciplines and purificatory practices will become worthless or useless, is it not? This is the seventh doubt. To this, the solution is because in the scriptural texts, self knowledge or jnana has been propounded or taught for attaining liberation or moksha, it becomes established that all bondage is caused by ignorance or ajnana alone. For removing ignorance alone is the function of knowledge, and not to create afresh what does not exist. To the ignorant people who have misconceived that they are the body, senses, etc. alone, that is, who have innate identification with their body, senses, etc., merely because in the scriptural texts religious actions or meditations have been stipulated, there cannot be any hindrance or objection whatsoever to the teaching propounded from the absolute or transcendental viewpoint to the effect Atman is Brahman. Next, 29th point. Let it be that karmas, the religious duties or actions, have been stipulated by virtue of the relationship with the body, the senses, etc. alone. Even so, the body, the senses, etc. do exist indeed. It is not possible to avoid them at all. Therefore, there is no stratagem or logical device to destroy the ignorance, ajnana, which is born out of the relationship with the body, the senses, etc. Is it not? To this question, too, there is an answer. The body, the senses, etc., really do not exist. If it is properly and deeply deliberated upon, we are in fact transacting Atman or the self alone as the body, the senses, etc. But there is no other authentic or authoritative evidence for the body, the senses, etc., to exist separately by themselves, and this truth will be known or discerned. Either in the waking or the dream, the various things are seen as objects to the pure consciousness, Chaitanya, and they, being in its control alone, appear. But being dissociated from pure consciousness, any object whatsoever independently appearing to us, we do not know at all. Just as the sun is illuminating the whole universe, pure consciousness of the self or Atman alone is illumining the body, the senses, etc., and all such phenomena. In states like deep sleep and samadhi, or trance, etc., the body, the senses, etc., do not exist. Therefore, the body, senses, etc., as well as their relationship and the resultant samsara, that is transmigratory life of repeated births and deaths, all these do not exist in Atman or the Self in the ultimate analysis or in reality. This is the 29th point. Next, 30th point. It has been stated in the scriptural texts that one should meditate upon Brahman or the ultimate reality. That in it, that is Brahman, all the karmas, religious duties or actions, all the desires, all the fragrances, all the tastes, and many more qualities exist. If the jiva who meditates is himself Brahman, it amounts to saying that one should meditate upon oneself, is it not? Because in the jiva or soul, no qualities whatsoever of Brahman seem to exist. It amounts to the scriptural texts losing all their validity or credibility. Is it not? What about this predicament? This is the eighth doubt. It has been previously itself indicated that meditations have been stipulated in the scriptural texts for the sake of ignorant people who are incapable of deliberating upon the self or Atman as one's own essential nature of pure being consciousness, and who are also desirous of various kinds of perceptible and imperceptible fruits, that is, the results before death and after death. It is very clearly stated or enunciated in the scriptural text that which we meditate upon is not Brahman or the ultimate reality. Nedam yadidam upasate, it is told in Upanishads. Na idam yat idam upasate. That which we meditate upon is not Brahman or the ultimate reality. And that pure consciousness or Chaitanya alone, which objectifies the body, the senses, the mind, and the intellect, is Brahman or the ultimate reality. Therefore, the scriptural texts do not have the purport of teaching the essential form of Brahman as projected or described in the meditations. There, in those contexts, the qualities of the adjuncts or upadhis alone have been stated as the qualities of Brahman, because all the adjuncts are superimposed on or conceived in Brahman or the ultimate reality of pure being consciousness. It should be discerned that the statement, they are the qualities of Brahman, is made just as a formality or upachara or for name's sake. This is the 30th point. 31st point. It is stated in the scriptural texts that Brahman is the cause for the birth, the sustenance, and the dissolution of the entire universe, and that Brahman is omniscient, Sarvajna, and omnipotent, Sarvashakta. The world or universe is not born out of the jiva. There are so many things that are not known to the jiva. There are many actions or functions which the jiva cannot perform at all. This being so, is it proper to assert that the jiva alone is Brahman? This is the 9th doubt. See, every doubts have been cleared here. To this doubt, the solution is the worlds that appear in the waking and in the dream can appear only within their respective states alone. Then, that is, in those respective states, the worlds appear to be within the control of the pure consciousness of Atman or the Self alone. In deep sleep, there does not exist any world whatsoever. It gets dissolved in Atman alone. See, if we see something in dream state, and some persons also, after getting up, that is in awakened state, if we say those persons who have seen in our dream state that I have seen you in my dream, can they agree that they have also seen us in their dream state? No. So it is purely personal or relative. That's what they are saying here. The words that appear in the waking and in the dream can appear only within their respective states only. It is relative to that individual, and it is also seen only in that state only. Whichever seen in the dream state you may not seen in the awakened state, and whichever awakened state you have seen, we may not seen in the dream state, and we cannot bring one to the another. Whatever in dream state we have seen, most of the times we cannot bring those items to the awakened state. In a dream state we may be a king, but if you come to the awakened state, you can't bring that king status to this. Here he may be a beggar in the awakened state. So that is the thing. Therefore, so in deep sleep there does not exist any world whatsoever. It gets dissolved in Atman alone. So these are the three states: awakened state, dream state, and deep sleep. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Therefore, it is tantamount to saying that the world sprouting and spreading out manifests and then submerges in Atman alone. For this reason, that is Drik Drishya Viveka. For this reason, that is Drik Drishya means Drik and Drishya. So, Yatha Drishtis Tatha Srishtihi. How one sees, it looks like that. If we see or feel, like, we'll see or experience the same, like that. Yad bhavam tad bhavati. Therefore, here it is tantamount to saying that the world sprouting and spreading out manifests and then submerges in Atman alone. For this reason, it amounts to saying that the power of creating all the worlds exists in Atman. Because the whole world exists as an object alone to the pure consciousness of Atman, it amounts to saying that Atman is omniscient. Because the whole world exists as an object alone to the pure consciousness of Atman, it amounts to saying that Atman is omniscient. But even the statement to the effect that Brahman is the cause for the world is omniscient as well as omnipotent is made from the viewpoint of ajnana or ignorance alone, but not from the viewpoint of reality. For apart from Brahman, no other entity exists. This alone is the truth. This is the 31st point. Next, the 32nd point. If Brahman alone is the real entity, it amounts to saying that those who say that Brahman should be known do not exist separately. Perception, inference, etc., all these valid means of cognition are rendered as not real means of cognition. The religious duties or actions and meditations stipulated in the scriptural texts become futile because the disciple who studies the knowledge about Brahma Vidya, or the preceptor who teaches it are really not existing. The scriptural texts teaching self-knowledge too become futile. Thus, to render the whole gamut of empirical transactions into a big zero, is it reasonable? This is the 10th doubt. But first of all, for the doubt of the type, if Brahman alone is real, in which an if is used, itself is no cause or room For it is established on the strength of our reasoning and experience that Brahman alone is the really existing entity, and that alone is our Atman or self of the essential nature of pure being consciousness. Perception, inference, etc., these valid means of cognition belong to the empirical dealings, Vyavaharika Drishti, carried on within the state of waking, Jagradavastha. They do not indicate anything whatsoever with regard to Brahman, the ultimate reality. Therefore, for them there is no harm at all. It has been stated at the beginning itself that the religious acts and meditations mentioned in the scriptural texts are meant for the ignorant people who have an innate identification of reality in actions and means of action. This is the 32nd point. I think we will continue in the next session. Thank you. Hare Rama. Shri Sachidananda Arpitamastu. Brahma Arpanamastu. Om Tat Sat.